morning, I'm James Gordon, Managing Director of DiGiCo, and I'm sat here with
David Webster, Marketing Director from DiGiCo. Well, my first experience was actually with signal processing equipment before mixing consoles. First actual mixing console that I actually played with was the soundtracks, actually, and James did the demonstration. And that was a long time ago, and the amazing thing at the time with touchscreens were a relatively new technology, especially in our industry. And it's quite funny how times have changed in that everybody's used to touchscreens now with your sat-navs, your telephones, etc. It's commonplace in the world, and that user interface everybody now understands, whereas it was a learning progression when it first came out. It's just standard. You take somebody out of school today, they know exactly how a touchscreen works and what to do with it.
Well, my first experience with a digital desk was in a post-production studio. And I used two very different consoles, one low end and one very high end. And then in 1996 I got pulled in to see Virtua, which was Soundtrax's first digital console. And they wanted someone to do demonstrations of the console. And I can remember now it was about, well, in euro terms it would have been about 22,000 euros. And it was far better than the desk I had that cost 10 times that amount of money. And I just fell in love with the company and the products. So I guess two digital desks before Soundtrax, and I've never looked back. In early 2000, the post-production market was getting a little bit competitive. People were moving much more to controllers rather than large format mixing consoles. So we started to look at moving into live sound as Soundtrax, but realized that to enter the market we had no knowledge of the market or the contacts within the market. So we approached some people that at that time were working for Midas and talked to them about the industry and about where we should go. Webby was one of them, obviously Bob Doyle was the other. They both saw what we were doing and fell in love with the technology in the same way I had in 1996. John Stadius is an infectious person, slightly crazy, but you have to love him, he's a genius. And it just made sense at that time to form a new brand to signal a change in the company, because Todd Wells, that had run Soundtrax, retired, and DiGiCo was born, and that was 10 years ago, pretty much to the day actually.
Well, it's quite interesting. I mean, when you look at our industry as a whole, it's about relationships first and foremost, and the fact that the product was awesome is still awesome today, 10 years on. When you look at it compared to the competition, it's using what is the best of DSP is still in the D5. So 10 years on, it's still an amazing product. User interface still very understandable, etc. Now, when we first brought it out in 2002, big issue there was everybody, yes, they're worried or scared of, it's a computer, it will break. But I think it's the same thing. Once it was hands-on, what we did, it hadn't been done before. We did a multi-track recording of 44 tracks straight to an IDE recorder, never been done before, which is quite interesting. We'll get onto that later. With those 44 tracks, I also recorded video, and so we had a timecode link with that video, so it allowed you to see Rod Stewart and then go and play with the console. So it was quite interesting that a lot of engineers that would be scared, we said, well, go and try it. So they basically got a show in front of them. They could see when the guitarist was going to do a lead solo. They'd push up the lead guitarist and have a play with the EQ, have a play with the effects, etc. And a lot of them then turned around and went, well, this is easy to use. I could use this in the show. We also then followed that up with what we called our White Gloves Masterclass. And it was quite interesting. We got a lot of engineers that we knew over the years that came in to be taught how to use the console. And the first day was quite interesting in that, it's like, again, I don't want to touch it, it might break, because that's the perception, was 10 years ago. And then we did what you would do on the road. We all went out for the evening, got exceptionally drunk, got in late, and then the following day was a band setting up, and everybody had to actually do it like in the real world with a hangover from hell. They had to actually set up a show. And everybody then, being in that real world situation, realized how quick and easy it was to use. So all those engineers from that day on just spec'd a D5. Well, to be honest, I think when we launched at Plaza, the fact that we had a package that people understood, we were doing it in the same way as you did in the analog world. You had your stage box on stage. It happened to have your mic preamps in there rather than just XLRs, but that's where it was. Your multi-core was replaced with fiber optic, and that multi-core went into the back of your console. It happened to be one connector instead of hundreds, but everything then was happening in the console. No silly connections to any outboard gear, etc. So it was still the same workflow that you had. It's just that you were working in the digital domain, and it was a lot easier to get people's heads around it, especially when you've got dynamics and everything else in there that you have in a digital console and snapshots. Getting them around just using the console in a live environment. I mean, some engineers, I won't name who they are, but one with a very famous guitarist still doesn't use snapshots because he uses it just like an analog console and loves the sound of it. And every show, everybody says it's fantastic.
I don't think choosing between the consoles is difficult. I think our numbering scheme is entertaining, but there is a story behind every one. So, really it was the order they came out in. So if you look at 7, it followed on from 5, but because it was such a big step in technology, we made it a generation change. So we missed 6 and went straight to 7. And then they just run in the order they came out in until you get to SD5, and that's because it's our 10th anniversary of D5, and it's a mark of respect to a product that changed the industry. It was the first digital desk that was acceptable, if you like, on large-scale tours, and it was the console that made this company what it is today. So we just wanted to mark it with creating what is, if you like, the next generation of D5 with SD5, which is a 2012 version of a 2002 product, if you like. As to the models in the range, they're really easy to distinguish between features and price points. We have covered pretty much the full spectrum now, so we're going to have to get into lighting next year, I think.
Well, it's hard to say, really. Probably yes. Obviously, the advent of bringing this product out was we were trying to bring a product out, that would help us from a demonstration point of view, help us with our products, etc. We've always been involved in recording. As I said, initially we did the first recorder that was doing 44 tracks, cobbled together of something out of the back shed at Soundtracks, wasn't it, for the launch of the D5. And we've gone through, we've done stuff with Pyramix, we've done some stuff with RME, etc., and it got to the point where we were using that, especially with laptops, and times are changing so quickly in computer world that we were getting the interface that you have, the express card slot, is now disappearing. And on a Mac, for example, you can only get it on the big 17-inch one, and on a lot of PC ones, they're just disappearing. So it was like we needed an interface that would be standard, and even on, say, a 10-year-old computer, whether it be Mac or PC. So we embarked on trying to get it to work through USB 2 that we were told we couldn't get it to work, but our boys with Super FPGA, the same as we have in the consoles, have been able to get it to do that and do 48 tracks in, obviously, and out from a standard USB 2 with just this single device that looks like a hip flask. Well, me, it's SD7. I have to say, it's the most beautiful looking console, the best workflow, all the things about it. It's got everything on it that you could possibly want, and more. The fact that you have the redundancy inbuilt, you don't have to connect anything externally. It does everything.
My favourite console's the SD7, without doubt. If I could have one to use, I'd use it every day and love it. It's so nice to mix on, everything's in the right place. But getting back to the real world, I'm really fond of SD9. I think it's an amazing little footprint. Code name Red Snapper is a beautiful little desk. Everything's in a nice, close to reach format. The fact it's 72 mic inputs plus a MADI interface. 40 channels that can be mono or stereo, and it's less than an arm's width. So for me, it's kind of like If I had the money, I'd be an SD7 all the way, but if I was using it as a everyday workhorse, it's an SD9 probably for me. But the SD8's the one that made the company what it is, so I love them all actually.